It's the forecheck, the first one of the season. The forecheck, back check, paycheck with special guest today. Special guest, Big Justice and AJ.
That'd be a lot better and more entertaining. But yeah, man, happy to be back in the NHL streets. It feels like it's been a long time.
Yeah, I do feel. I mean, even though the NHL off season, so short, training camp started right away. It seemed, and now we're back at it with a inaugural run to the Cup for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah. I mean, maybe. Sure. I think it's going to be the Rangers, but I think everyone listening to this knew that those are the two teams we'd pick, so we can just keep it moving.
So a decent contest today for DraftKings. On a 3-game slate, don't you think? I mean, $50K up top's pretty good for a 3-game slate. I think they shot at this with both barrels.
Yeah, it's great. I'm just I'm a little concerned about whether it'll fill and hoping that. I mean, it's tough, man. 3 games with one game starting at 4:30.
Yeah.
It's like the opposite of what casual players want. The slate's going to run from 4:30 p.m. till about 1 a.m. So hopefully, if it does fall a little short, DK kind of can look at it objectively and say, all right, well, that was a tough one, and keep the contests coming, especially before NBA starts.
It's 8K short with 3 hours to go.
That's not that bad.
It's a chance it fills. Yeah, and I think you mentioned the thing that we want to talk about is casuals, right? So the approach, and Saul leads the hockey team with Matty Ice and QP, Quick Party, which is just a fantastic Discord chat. Extremely knowledgeable guys, extremely invested in the game. I grew up. This is my favorite sport by far. I grew up in this sport. I think, though, what can scare off casuals, and similarly in golf, is that, but golf, Americans know a lot more about golf than they do about hockey, is that a lot of people just don't understand this game. They didn't grow up in it. They didn't follow it. And the data can be sort of overwhelming and be a firewall to get people to play. And so what we wanted to do this year at RPS, in consultation with Large Anthony 44 or Grande Antonio.
Mm-hmm.
What's 44 in Spanish?
I think it's 44. So
there's his
we'll
new
have to
name.
work on that. Yeah.
Can you do that whole name then? Grande
Antonio 44.
There we go.
Yeah, we can clip that.
Yeah, when we go live, we'll clip that out. But what we wanted to do was, okay, let's simplify it. Let's let the experts who've been playing this a long time. I consider you a top player in the world. No, I consider you the top player in the world. You own the crown. Sorry,
Thank
Buddha
you.
Man.
Buddha is the king, though.
He's just the king of life.
Yes.
That let's make, because Large Anthony 44 wants to play, and I said, well, simplify it in a way that would make you put in lineups without you having to really understand the sport to the degree that we look at analytics and data, because you can go really down a well with data in hockey. And so that's what we did. So smart people like you are doing playbooks. You're doing your analysis. Matty Ice is putting in his rankings and his cores, and Quick Party's doing the same thing. Plus you have the narrative inside the Discord that allows this game to be a little more accessible and digestible to the casual player, because the ultimate goal is to make these contests bigger. And we can't make these contests bigger if we sort of prevent people from wanting to play, because, and in NHL, there's a lot of, I don't want to say elitism, but there's that in golf too. It's like it turns people off, right? They're scared to even jump in the streets. We need more casual players to skip playing NBA and come boost these contests up for NHL. Do you agree?
Yeah, and I think kind of the easy sort of analogy I would use is like NHL is very similar to baseball, and we've talked about this before.
Yep.
You know, you have your goalie, which would be like your pitcher. You have a stack or two, which is the same as in baseball. You know, goals are similar to home runs, where they can kind of change a slate and add a lot of points to a stack at once. So if people have played MLB, it's kind of a similar idea for NHL. And basically for NHL, we're looking for goals, assists, shots, and then for defensemen, we can also add blocks to that. And those are kind of like the four main things. Goalie is a kind of a separate thing entirely.
It's like a pitcher.
A lot more variance than pitchers though. Like pitchers, you kind of know, okay, Chris Sale's going against the Rockies in Atlanta. Like he's probably going to get somewhere between 25 and 40 points. If let's say UC Saros is going against the worst team in hockey, he can get between -5 and 30. So like the dispersion is way wider with goalies.
Yeah, and in like you want a good pitcher in baseball, you want him to perform well. In hockey, you could have a average to decent goalie who has a good night, but just gets volume. You want these bonuses. You want 35 plus saves. So like a Miragic tonight or a Bennington, who are going to face a lot of shots, they can let a few goals in, but you want the save volume if they can get it. Yes. Or like a high puck possession team like the Leafs, the Panthers, where Joseph Wall will face 20 shots. I think he faced 20 shots against Detroit. Even though he won, that's not a huge point night for him.
Yeah, and so like I would say saves, to continue the analogy, bulk of saves is like getting a lot of strikeouts, where you can get a pitcher with 10 Ks who gives up 5 runs, but he might have a better score than a pitcher who throws like 5 shutout innings but doesn't strike anybody out. So yeah, you're looking for saves, you're looking for volume, and because it's such a variable thing, you can kind of pay down a goalie a little bit more, where sometimes you'll get less ownership, and you'll also get guys that are underdogs, so they're likely to face more shots. Now, of course, they can blow up, but any of these goalies can blow up. So that's kind of like the bare bones of what NHL looks like. You know,
unlike baseball, where someone could go off for 4 home runs and just absolutely dominate a slate. It's like there's not as much scoring and point production in hockey. There can be, but if you have a stacked line and they score 1 or 2 goals, you're pretty much going to be talking in the cash line at that point.
Yeah, and of course it depends on what contest, but like you don't need like tonight's $5, like you're going to need to be almost perfect because there's so many entries and it's such a short slate. There's only going to be like a few ways to get to the very top. Whereas on a normal night where there's not as many entries in a $5 tournament and there's 5, 6, 7, 8 games, to your point, you might see the top 5 of a GPP be with like 5 different main stacks because they all kind of got between, 2, 3 goals, a couple of shot bonuses. So there's different ways to the top for sure.
Talk about correlation like baseball.
Yeah. So similar to how, in baseball, a home run can result in a homer and then runs for the other guys. A goal in hockey can come with up to 2, either 0, 1, or 2 assists for what'll be his line mates or maybe the defensemen that are on the ice with them. So
automatic
in hockey, right. So in hockey, you have 3-man forward lines and then you have defense pairs. Now there are 4 lines and 3 pairs. So like if you see a guy is, if you look at like daily face-off for your lines, let's say, and you see that Alexander Barkov is on line 1 for Florida, and then you see that, like, let's say Aaron Ekblad is the top defensive pair for Florida. They're not necessarily going to play together the whole game because the pairs and the lines will kind of rotate through because there's 4 of one, 3 of the other. Now, the other guys that play with Barkov, who are like Carter Verhaeghe and Sam Reinhart, there will be a really strong correlation between those 3 guys because they play together at even strength. So even strength is just like there's no penalties. And then also on the power play. Now, power play is when one team has a penalty, they have a guy in the box, so your team is playing 4 against 5 for 2 minutes or more. So we look at like even strength stuff, but then we also look at power play stuff. And so like the perfect correlations, like again, like Florida won tonight or like Utah won, the guys play together. Like if Barkov's playing 20 minutes, pretty much all 20 minutes are going to be with Verhaeghe and Reinhart. So like those are ideal circumstances.
Yes.
So
Yes.
anytime
they're playing
one
on
guy
the power
does
play
something,
together too, meaning that when they go, they're the first line power play unit. Boston gets a penalty, then power play 1 is out there with 2 correlating defensemen. Tonight it's going to be it's going to be Kachuk, and then Boqvist is the defenseman.
Boqvist, yeah.
So
right. So you want,
and how many goals are scored typically on the power play out of the percentage of goals? Is it 20 to 30? I know Quick Party had the number.
Yeah.
I'm going to make shit up if not.
I would say somewhere between 6.9% and 69%. That's going to be what I'm going to go with.
Yes.
But yeah,
I think I said 30 last year, and he said no, 23 or something like that.
It's somewhere in the 20 to 30 range, I'm sure.
You know, if you look at line matching, which is Quick Party site or Daily Face-Off, it'll give you the line correlations. It'll say who these 3 players are playing with. So if you could get 100 assists in a season if you played with Austin Matthews, right? Just by being there.
Sure. And so to that point, so like on our playbook, we tried to make it pretty. I mean, it was pretty simple already last year, but we tried to make it even simpler this year, where it just shows kind of top stacks, value stacks, defense, some punts, and goalies. We have rankings. I have notes there, and when applicable, I'll also add some power play stacks in there. Like today, we just kind of went with the regular even strength ones.
Yep.
But the idea for a novice NHL player with the playbook, the way we have it, is you can kind of go through, even if you know nothing about hockey, you can basically go and say, pick a top stack. You can pick a value stack, that'll be like six players. It'll be all your forward spots. And then you can pick 2 defensemen and a goalie, and you have, at the very least, a respectable lineup. You may find that, I have $2,000 left over. Let me go back to the defense and pick a different guy, or maybe I can fit 2 top stacks. Doesn't have to be a top and a value. So you can kind of play with it, but you'll have the basics of a good, solid lineup just by looking at the playbook.
And one thing we talked about with goalies was you don't necessarily have to have the all-world pitcher to have a good goalie. He just has to get volume and have a good night and make a lot of saves on a defense that sucks in front of him. Same thing with defensemen, right? Defensemen, we always love playing shot blocking defensemen. Don't necessarily need to score. Don't even necessarily get an assist. But what's it? It's 1.3 per shot, so it's 3.9 plus the bonus. If a defenseman just stands in front of 3 pucks, he's 6.9 points. Hello, automatically, right? And when you get a punt, like Ferraro is a good example, or Periaco, who's blocked the most shots last year, I think in the NHL. He's expensive tonight, though. But one of those guys gets the three block shots and the bonus. That's a good night for a Stone Min defenseman, $2,800 defenseman, right?
Yes, for sure. And we'll be looking more at those type of guys
once the season starts.
Yeah, and like just tonight, and we can kind of maybe talk a little bit about tonight's slate in particular before we get into the Saber stuff. But like tonight, there's 2 defensemen that in Justin Falk and Mikhail Sergachev, which are, in my opinion, they're like $1,000 underpriced. They were a little bit more expensive than this last year, and they were on the second power play unit on their teams. Now they're running the first power play unit. Sergachev in particular is in a great spot because Chicago is atrocious. And so that combined with that there's not any superstar teams on this slate like Toronto, Colorado, Edmonton, Tampa that you'll want to pay up for. which would lead you to needing more punt defensemen. Tonight, I think, is just kind of like a stay in the mid to high range on defense because you're just not going to need to go down there. Like I ran 150 lineups, and like I kept Aaron Ekblad in there, but then I kept Adam Larson in there. The only two guys I have below 2,800 are Andrew Peak and Nico Mikkola, who are like the blocks guys just to fit in some more expensive stuff, but the majority of my stuff is Sergachev, Falk, Seth Jones. And so tonight, not as much punt on defense, but like tomorrow and going forward, whenever one of those big time teams is on the slate and you're spending, $23,000 for a line, you're going to need that stuff a lot more. But tonight, a little bit different because I think we have some broken prices.
Yeah, and Utah are still the Arizona Coyotes, right? Sergachev. I mean, they're still them. And I know it's the first home game. They're going to be juiced. They're playing Chicago. They're playing Peter Mrazek, who's not great. He couldn't even make the Leafs back when their goalie sucked. But Sergachev was traded for Tampa Bay, and he's one of their best players, right? He's a $4,300 power play one. He's going to play, 23 minutes?
I would think so, yeah.
Huh?
Yep, I think so.
I mean, you want these guys who are on – if you're on the ice more, it's very simple. I know this sounds profound, but the more minutes you spend on the ice, and defensemen spend the most time on the ice, generally, your star defenseman. I mean, there's guys who play – what does like
Roman Josi plays like 26, 27 minutes a night.
Every night.
Yeah.
Sergachev could get up there too on this team. So at $4,300, he's going to do something. And he's a very good defenseman. So I agree with that. What I want to do, let me ask you this, one final thing before we go to the Sabersim. So we'll jump into Sabersim, we'll build some stuff, applying what we just learned now. How do you tip? Let's not do this as an example for a 3-game slate because the stacks are going to be weird. Again, you have to be perfect. So you're going to see some maybe 5-2 stacks, meaning a full power play and two of another team.
Yep.
How do you typically stack, let's say, full slate on a big GPP?
Yeah. So what I like to do is just as a base, I like to have 2 separate 3 forward lines. So like, Tampa 1 and New York Rangers 3 or whatever, right? So picking 3 forward lines. And then if it makes sense, if I like the options, I will correlate one of the defenseman spots with one of those lines. So let's say on Tampa, Victor Hedman is their big power play quarterback. He's going to play 25 minutes. So they'll say, okay, I want Tampa 1 with Hedman so then it's a 4-man stack. I'll have New York Rangers 3, and then I'll pick another defenseman and a goalie that fit. So I would probably I kind of start from the bottom when I look at goalies because of what we talked about before. Yeah. Try to find kind of the most appealing like loser goalie.
Who's the least appealing loser goalie? Korpisalo?
Tonight, Korpisalo. In general, anyone who's playing for the Leafs.
Hey. We've got Stolarz. Stanley Cup winning Stolarz.
Yeah, he is pretty good actually.
He's 6'6", 243. He's the biggest guy on the Leafs in the league. I mean,
yeah. So I would find a couple stacks. I would maybe correlate a defenseman. I would then look and see if I could spend, kind of like 7,500 or less on goalie on a normal slate if I can. Mm-hmm. And then whatever that last D-man spot is, however much money I have is kind of, if I find a D-man or a mid-price D-man, that's kind of like how I would go. If I was building one lineup, I would pick my favorite top stack, pick my favorite secondary stack, see if I can correlate a defenseman. And if I can't, I'm okay with that. If I go, so that would, I guess you'd refer to that as like a 3-3-1-1. 3 forwards, and then 2 uncorrelated defensemen.
Or 4-3-1.
Or 4-3-1. Like those are the 2 base ones, and you kind of can't go wrong with that stuff. On these shorter slates, just a quick word, like you can go 5-2-1.
Yeah.
You can also go kind of in the other direction and do like a lot of like try to just hit it perfect and hit like 2-2-2, what however many twos that is, 2-2-2-2, but the only thing with that is you're really having to hit you're basically having to hit like a 4-team parlay to do that, as opposed to just picking one team that's gonna blow the doors off the other one.
Do you typically there's a default, not a default rule, but a checkable rule inside Sabersim, I'll show you in a second, that says do not play opposing team skaters against the other team's goalie. I won't do that tonight because I don't think you can get enough lineups doing it on a 3-game slate. Do you typically do that though?
Yeah, on a normal size slate, so I would call normal like 4 and above.
Yep.
I would check that box. I would not allow it, but tonight, kind of the Wild West with this stuff, you just whatever happens. I mean, I would like to, ideally, in a perfect world tonight, though, I would say I would love for it to be one skater, and I would love for that skater to be a defenseman. Like if I could look at my lineups and kind of see if that was the case, because that's kind of the least painful way to go about it, where you're not kind of cannibalizing yourself.
Which you can create that rule.
Right. And so I would maybe try to do that if I was going to do that.
Also runbacks, the NFL version of the NHL version of runbacks.
Yeah, not as important
Skate
in
backs.
this. Yeah, so I would say I'm not super interested in runbacks. Like it's fine if you get them. Like tonight, you can have a game stack of Utah, Chicago, and like we may adjust those team totals in Saber to see what happens. Because
are you opening a briefcase of cash?
I'm dropping my phone twice, actually.
Sounds like you were doing a deal.
So really, the best way to put it about the runbacks is, in NFL, if somebody scores, the other team gets the ball quickly. In hockey, there's just one puck, and the same team can just keep absolutely pounding. So like one goal by Boston tonight doesn't mean that Florida is going to have any additional offensive expectations. Like there's a little bit of what are called score effects, which is like, let's say the Leafs go up 2-0, and they're playing the Rangers. Rangers are slightly more likely to be taking more shots the rest of the game because the Leafs will be trying to play a little bit more defensive. But I guess the best way to put it is like it's okay to have runbacks, but certainly would not force them where I would in NFL.
Yeah, because the Leafs can easily beat the Rangers 7-0, and the Rangers do nothing. They don't need to push the Leafs to do it.
Exactly.
And your skaters your defensemen are still going to skate for 23 minutes a game. They have to.
Yep.
All right, let's see if I can do this effectively. Last time I failed. Today I won't. There we go. All right. Bang bong. Okay. So this is Sabersim right now. This is sorted by team. Utah was creating a heavy amount of data issues because they're a new team. So the data people were getting a little bit in the weeds, but looks like Sabersim, we are clean now. We'll do a quick refresh on this. I have done, what's your min salary? I did 49.2. I think you can use salary in hockey. You may want to go a little lower tonight to be unique, possibly.
Yeah, I think you can, specifically for tonight, you can go to like, you can go to like 48.5 because you can definitely make some good lineups. Like I made a lineup yesterday just clicking for a placeholder that left like 2,000 left over, and I was fine with it. But again, you can use it in hockey. So, I think 48.5 for tonight, and then I usually have it pretty close to max on a normal slate, 49.2, 49.3, something like that.
What I did very high correlation.
Yeah, I would maybe go to 8, even 7 or 8 is good there.
Yep. So we are going to sim it. Now, the next thing we do, first thing I look at value. I always look at defensive value. What names are popping out in terms of projections? There's Sergachev right there. Now, he's going to be close to 50% owned. Mm-hmm. If you want to lever the field, fade him. But he's the top value defenseman and just the highest grossing defenseman. Well,
Yeah,
so
and I just one quick word on like ownership a bit in hockey.
mm,
I really don't worry about it much, unless there's going to be like if I look at Saber and it's like okay, some absolute scrub is going to be 30% owned, like
right.
then I'll actively avoid it. But there's so many ways that your lineup can be different than others that there's really like maybe you might see a couple dupes tonight, but there's really not. It's not like Showdown where there's like 24 different
Yeah.
players available. There's, even on a 3-game slate, there's millions of ways that
Yeah,
you can go through
and you
these.
could still get unique on a 98,000 team lineup with 6 players on an NFL showdown slate. So you
Right,
certainly can do it
right.
in hockey.
And you
Um,
don't have to try to do it in
no,
hockey.
you
Is my
don't.
point.
So also you're looking at the field's power play and even strength. So the advantage, your defensemen are on the power play one specifically, and finding guys who are decently priced who are on a power play one. You talked about Mikkola. He's not on a power play, but he still plays minutes and he blocks shots. So $2,800 guy who can get a bonus with shot blocking, maybe snag an assist.
Yeah,
That's a pretty
I
good
would
night.
here. So let's make a couple of quick projection adjustments
Yes.
because I think some of this stuff is based on last year's roles for these guys,
Yep.
and so like Mason Lowry, for example, I would bump him down a little bit
Who's
because
this?
the guy at the top, Mason Lowry,
Mason
on
Lowry. Yes.
because he was like McAvoy was out for a while last year, so there's a lot of games in that sample where he was power play one and just not the same thing tonight. I would move Justin Falk up. I would put him at like 10 probably. Um, Again, he was power play two last year. Now he's power play
Yes.
one.
He
And
stood
the
out
rest
to
of
me.
rest of it's kind of like okay, I guess. Ian Cole is always a guy that projects really well because he blocks a lot of shots. Looks funny to have him at the top, but I think it's okay.
From a
I think the
value
rest
play.
is fine.
Well,
Yeah.
you can also what we also do is you go into team sack. So if we believe that these goals can be adjusted, if we believe like our conviction is probably Chicago, Utah is going to be a shit show. So let's say we think it's going to be 4 goals instead. Let's say it's going to be a 4-3 game. Let's say Utah steals one. It doesn't steal one, but let's say they beat Chicago. It's not an expansion team like Seattle was, and Seattle's really good. Let's say Florida. I like Florida better tonight than Boston, don't you?
Yeah, I would go like 3.5 to 2.5 or something like that on that game or whatever
Well,
you want. Yeah, I would
I was going to go four
spread it
three,
out.
but let's just do that.
Yeah, I don't
Is
like.
Swayman in
I
goal
think
tonight?
no, it's Corpusalo.
There you go.
So
That's a
and
4-3
I that's just a really tough matchup for Boston on the road. And I also don't think Boston is going to be that good this year.
No,
So
I agree. Let's do like something like this, just randomly. So if I hit yes on this build, and I go to players, all. Let's go to my projection. Then I go to Sabersim adjusted. Basically, it's adjusting score outcomes for the entire team based on what you want to manipulate the goals at, right? So
mhm.
that helps you. So we've made 2 adjustments already so we can build lineups. Now, the filter here, what did I do? Oh, yeah, I filtered out any player less anyone greater than 0 hits the field. So I don't have to worry about seeing players that
Mhm.
are not going to be playing tonight. Unlike NBA, lineups are pretty solid, give or take, right? We might have some last minute news. We'll post that in the Discord. But right now, I think these lines are pretty solid. So if we go to build, it's going to sim this. There we go. Who's going to be our top stack? Seattle.
Probably going to be Arizona one or a power play one, most likely. I was getting a lot of that, which I'm fine with. I think they're gonna run over the Blackhawks tonight, and I think some of the other guys in Discord think that too. So
All right, here we go. Simmed it.
oh, cats, 6-man cats.
Nades can't take. Wait, look at this. Our conviction. Wiley hasn't played an NHL DFS slate since the Leafs won the last cup. A, that's not true. B, stay out of our sheets. Big boy.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to run contest sims here too. I'm not going to run contest sims, or maybe I am. I did. So we duplicated the $5 contest here, 50K to first. So it's going to sim it. Basically, what's running the contest sim now is it's going to give the best returning lineups based on what your projections said to have the best ROI in that contest. So let's just sort here by contest sim $5, right? Contest sim ROI. There we go. All right. Seattle. Ton of Seattle. Those are huge stacks, by the way.
Yeah. So So let's talk about.
So
this
here's
for
your
a
stack
second.
exposure. Oh, I only did 20 lineups. Hang on. Let's do 150.
Yeah. So what I like to do, well, it's not giving you the. I was gonna say the 2-2-2 stuff.
Right there.
No, go back. Yeah, go right there.
Yeah, right
So
there. You want the 2-2-2s?
no,
You want to see
I
what they are?
don't. I just don't. I just want to make sure that we're not getting too many of them because that's really not.
Right.
It's a pretty good spread. I would say 6 stuff. I'm not gonna play any 6-mans tonight. You could, and Saber obviously thinks it's a good idea on a short slate. So I would probably side with the machine on that one. But it's a tricky one. I like the 5-2-1s a lot better, personally.
Yeah.
Feels a little better, and like for example, you could like even that first lineup there on the right that's got Stevenson, Bedard, whatever.
Yeah.
You could just change like Bedard, Stevenson to like Barkov, Hayton or something, and you have a 5-2-1 then, and take bum ass Stevenson out of the out of the mix. So you can kind of do things like that too, where like I do that often, where Saber will show me a really good lineup, and I'll just tinker a little bit. And it's hard for you to tinker too much if you don't know a lot about NHL. But this is where then maybe you can kind of look at the playbook and look at the cores that the 3 of us are posting or the 4 of us are posting, and say, okay, I would like to get. I see that Barrett Hayton is in everyone's core tonight. I don't know if he is or not. I didn't check, but let me see if I can get him in for Stevenson in this lineup. And then what else can I? Oh, okay. They said they like Sergachev a lot. Let's get him in for Larson. You can kind of mess with it a little bit with combination of using Saber and using the cores and the playbook that we have going on. I think that's a smart way to kind of go about building, especially if you're building, 1, 3, 5 lineups. You can take the care to kind of look around and do that stuff.
Would you eliminate any of these stacks in general?
I personally would eliminate the 6s.
Yeah.
The other stuff I think is fine.
Yeah, that changes things dramatically.
Yeah, so now you get a nice little power play 2 stack for the Cats on the right there.
Yep.
You get one off Pasternak, and you get a Bedard, Bertuzzi, Jones. So you get a 4-3-1 instead of a 6-man, and that it's also a better sweat too. Honestly, like if you're looking for a sweat, like having different balls in the air is fun. Relying on one team to score like 5 or 6 goals I'd rather just bet the team total over and play DFS a little differently.
Yeah. And they didn't really overexpose players, right? I mean, you didn't get like a 99% player. Would you still run uniques though?
You can. I would do like 3 or 4 if I were going to do that.
That'll skin it down. I still love Seth Jones. So if you want to cap Seth Jones and say,
right. So this is where this is the tricky part with combining Saber with our stuff, right?
Yes.
Because Saber is going to, as you well know, doing this for a lot of different sports, they take into account having to get to the top of a 35,000 person tournament, right? So that's why the lower owned guys that have a high ceiling are going to pop up to the top. And if you click on the leverage column, you're going to see negative leverage on Sergachev, Hayton, guys that we like, because Saber's well, they're going to be really popular. It's hard to get through that many people like this. So I think looking at this stuff, looking at our stuff, looking at Saber, trying to make some decisions on where you want to take a stand is a good idea. Even if you don't really know NHL, you can kind of see what they like, what we like, and maybe mix it a little bit. That's what I do for I know MLB more than probably new NHL players know NHL, but my procedure, my process playing MLB this year when I got the chance to was kind of like run some Saber lineups, read the playbook on RPS, check out the cores, and like see what I wanted to do. And it's a little bit more fun that way. You take a little ownership and you kind of, instead of just clicking run on Saber and taking the top 10 lineups, if you have the time to mess with it a little bit, I find that to be an interesting part of the puzzle.
Yeah. And then you could, like, if you really believe someone is going to be in the winning lineup, if you take hard stances, if you want 80% of Pasternak, if that's even possible to build 150 with 3 uniques. But you can adjust the minimum, and he's going to be exposed in 80% of your lineups.
Yeah,
or down for other players.
You can do it down too, right? Exactly.
Right. But overall, if you don't do min max on anyone, it wasn't a bad exposure. I don't think I want 47% of Seth Jones, but
no, it's not bad. It really is not bad.
It's
going to spread out, and you'll see on.
I got another question. Go ahead.
Yeah, on normal size slates, that'll be generally spread out even more for the most part.
Right.
NHL, it'll be, you won't see like the clumping and like in NFL, you might get 70% of a running back if it's a really good price. NHL, because of the stacking nature and stuff, it'll probably be pretty spread out, which is nice.
On the goalie side, do you fade any goalie or have a piece of everyone?
Kind of player preference, I think. I mean, in 150, let me see what did I get today?
It's like defenses in the NFL, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of like how I treat it. Unless there's a time, and you're gonna say I'm a homer for this, but last year for some reason,
of course,
DK, like Igor for like 2 months was like 7,400, which is like even if the Rangers suck, he's like one of the best goalies in the league, and so he was like 1,000 too cheap. So on those slates I might have had 30, 40%, 50% of him. But generally, if I'm running like 150 lineups, I'll have no more than like 20% of a goalie on a normal size slate. And I like to spread it out like defense. Like tonight, I have all of them. They're between 11% and 27% for me. I have all 6, and they all just kind of spread out a little bit.
Your favorite being Benny?
Yeah, well, we got that.
Don't share the notes in the playbook.
We got that information this morning, so I manually that was a manual bump. If you know,
there's some very good, and I googled it.
Well, we did the research, and we could confirm that
it's confirmed.
It was good info. Yeah, I like Bobrovsky and Binnington the most, but again, it's goalie. I kind of throw my hands up in the air with goalie and let the gods figure that one out.
Good. All right, let someone hit the slate. Let's do it tonight. NHL 15. 15% off your first payment. Come talk to Matty Ice. Matty Ice is still here for all the people asking. He's in the Discord. He's put up his cores. I think he's in the playbook. And QP, Saul. They're all there. One of us is going to ship. You think?
Yeah, or Sissimo will have a 20-team train, ship it, but one or the other. Yeah, Matty's cores are up, QPs are up, everybody's up. So
perfect.
Right, and there's brother. a lot of similarities. So hopefully we get there.
Yep. All right, brother.
All right.
Thank
you.
Thank you. Yep.